Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where we bring the mind, body, and gym together so you can improve your health, increase performance, and live your best life. For more information, visit thinkfitnesslife.com. Here are your hosts, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie.
Back, everybody, to the Think Fitness Life podcast. Like always, we have to start with our weekly workout, and then we will end with our food for thought. This week's episode is called Why Comfort is Killing You. But before we get into that and deep dive, I'll explain our weekly workout. Menchie can explain some of the science behind it. It's going to be more geared at your aerobic system, and think of this day as something to throw in between your more intense lifting days. So if you're someone who likes to weight train heavy 2 to 3 times a week, throw this day in between to help your recovery system and help your aerobic system and also strengthen your shoulders. So the workout: run, row, bike, 60 seconds at a 70 intensity, then rest 30 seconds, repeat 12 times. At the end of that, I want you to do a series of Y's, T's, and W's, strengthening your shoulder capsules. Do 3 sets of 15 reps on each one of those movements. Big reasoning behind the higher rep range and lower weights is that you're trying to strengthen a lot of the smaller muscles to keep your posture and keep yourself in good position so that your larger muscles can do the work of a pull-up or a bench press or whatever you might be lifting in the future.
Very, very basic aerobic day. With the 70%, you're going to look at, people have heard it as zone 2 aerobic work or cardio work. So your heart rate's probably going to be anywhere from 120 to 150, depending on where your heart rate falls in your age range. So that's going to be that zone 2, and you're targeting that zone 2 to get more oxygen to the muscles, to be able to utilize that oxygen. So as Matt said, this is more a recovery aspect day, but it's going to be a day that helps you recover from your high intensity workouts by getting energy substrates into the muscles and through the body. So that's the goal of this day. It might not feel like one of those days where you're lying on the floor after the bike. That's fine. This is just one of those lower intensity days, but it's important to work those zone 2, the cardiac output.
And this will be best suited for someone who just lifts and always avoids cardio. This will improve your aerobic capacity in your lifting sessions. So throw this in the middle of your week or throw this in between one of your lifting days. Another person that this benefits greatly towards are the people who just do HIIT all day, every day. They're just too high intensity constantly. They're mostly burning sugars for fuel and in that glycolytic phosphagen system. So most oftentimes they are craving sugars after their workout. And they're usually high stressful people who are chasing those results that just are never in front of them, unfortunately, at the rate that they want to see. So back it off a little bit and work into this intensity. It's going to be a little bit harder mentally to get there, but it's good for you. It's good for your system like that. Comfort kills. Where do you want to start, Menchie? I know we could take this so many different places.
Comfort's a mindset. It's a very easy one that at any time in our lives or anyone's lives, I think we fall into it. You sent me a very good image this morning in the comfort zone. It says feel safe and in control. And that's what a comfort zone is. That a comfort zone is an area, a spot, an environment where I know that there's no threats to me, that I can kind of coast and ease into it, and I feel relaxed. My nervous systems, I'm probably more parasympathetic. I'm easygoing. Good place to be at times. I want you in places of comfort zone, but staying in that comfort zone too much is the problem. And I think that's what this episode is about, is why that comfort zone that we love as human beings, human being brain loves to just kind of coast in. But we weren't built for that. But as we've gone on through society, we've built this ideology of this should be a comfort zone. Everything you do should be a comfort zone to you, where that is completely wrong. Our brain needs fear, it needs challenges, it needs some pushback. And why? Simple, to grow.
Yeah, I think of that classic line of don't give a man a fish, teach him to fish. I think a lot of times people can fall into the habit of wanting to do everything for their child because it's so painful to watch their kid, say, fall off a bike or fail at something. It's hard for the parent's ego to accept that. They have to sit back and let them fail and let them go through the stresses of not succeeding the first, second, third, or fourth time, and putting forth that effort to overcome something is that first step in learning why getting out of your comfort zone is so important. It's sort of why we were forced to eat vegetables at a young age. When it wasn't comfortable, it wasn't sweet, it wasn't savory, it wasn't enjoyable, but we knew it was good for us, we knew it was right for us, and our parents sort of pushed it on us because they also knew that was the piece that was getting us away from the trap of being stuck in the comfort zone. And I think that's when comfort can kill, is when you don't even have the discipline or the motivation anymore to push yourself out of your comfort zone for the better of your ultimate comfort. It's kind of funny like that. But if you just stay in your comfort zone 24/7 your whole life, a lot of bad things are going to happen in terms of your development, in terms of fear holding you back, lack of confidence holding you back, your brain sort of inundating you with negative self-deprecating thoughts that prevent you from trying anything or doing anything. And I've been there. You get to the point where you just are frozen and you're stuck and you don't know what to do. And the best thing for you to do is to take action, do something physically, do something where you link your mind and body together and you can't be analytical. You literally don't give yourself the option to psych yourself out. It's kind of like people who go on high dive. They'll say, like, if it's your first time, just get up and go. Or skydive is a good example too. Like, when you get up to the door, just go. Because otherwise you will sit there and you will give yourself all the time in the world and all the reasonings in the world to not jump.
Right. And we have this, the brain is fascinating, and that's what controls everything. We have this great big prefrontal cortex. Like you said, analytical, it's going to drive. There's some emotions there. It's always doing something to kind of show us where we want to go. Is this good? Is it bad? It's always perceiving the world as, should we be doing this? Should we not be doing this? And it plays into a factor. So it's all good, but sometimes I think people start overthinking things, like you say, right? Overthinking. And then as they start overthinking, they start losing this vision that they might have had of what they want to be or what could happen, right? So if we're skydiving and you start to think of what could happen, it's like, okay, yes, that can happen. What's the probability? It's a probably low probability. You have a professional who knows what they're doing on your back. Like, it's always this back and forth, right? What's the right decision? Is it the right or wrong decision? What's good? What's not good? And I think the comfort zone kind of lies in the middle somewhere, right? Sometimes these decisions that we have to make are tough. And you and I both know the right decision for health and fitness is a very hard choice on a daily basis. Eating the right things, getting up and actually performing your exercise. Because ideally, exercising is a big cost to the body. Does the body really want to do it? Probably not. But when it does do it, it knows it has to adapt to it. But I think then the brain comes in and says, well, all right, we're going to do this, but is it really worth it in the long run? What's the long run benefit of it? People don't have these visions of the long term. They don't have goals. So what
So it's hard
happens?
for
They
us to
start
tie
like
it to something
they pull
of,
back.
of the why behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're just a thrill seeker, you'll have no problem jumping out of the plane. But if you were convinced and drugged by tooth and nail to get on the plane in the first place, the moment you step up to that door, you're going to lose the whole, why am I even doing this? And you might just sit down and be like, this is stupid. I don't want to jump out of this plane. Because, right, you kind of lost that connective, logical, rational side of the brain because you just got so amygdala driven and lost that kind of balance point. And I think kind of what you're talking about is super important, is that middle ground of, should I push my comfort zone because I know this is going to be good for me, or and I just feel scared because it's a natural feeling to feel scared, or am I really feeling like this isn't even the best thing for me, even expanding from my comfort zone? And that's okay too. There's definitely a there's no one right way to do this, but I guess another analogy would be kind of like weight on the bar. If it's something that you've incrementally worked on percentages and this is a weight that you can handle at that rep range, then you should have no problem. Excuse me. But if you like went up to the bar and you've never even squatted 135 pounds and you put 225 on the bar and you just say, I'm not going to be afraid of this, well, then that's definitely erring on the side of a poor decision, not even really using your prefrontal cortex, probably just, again, more amygdala driving of probably ego and this is going to be amazing for me. And if I can do this, I'll be great. So it is about kind of being the best mediator of your brain that you can, and knowing that sometimes your knee-jerk reaction isn't always going to be the best gut feeling. The graphic that Menchie was talking about just kind of broke it down into comfort zone was in the middle. Just stemming outside of that is the fear zone. Then you have the learning zone and then the growth zone. And it definitely is a step-by-step endeavor to overcome, because the comfort zone is really like what you were saying before, is where you feel super safe and comfortable. And then anything beyond that, we usually lack the self-confidence, find excuses, or listen to other people's opinions about them. But until we move past that and experience it and try it for ourselves, then we never get to the point where we can deal with the challenge or problem ourselves, or learn a new skill, or even expand our comfort zone. Because you and I and people who say weight train their whole life, now that barbell with the weight on it, that's part of their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Where before, the gym wasn't even in their comfort zone. But it starts to expand upon itself the more you can grow, really. And I think a piece that I want you to really define for people, let's start by defining the word homeostasis.
Homeostasis in biology is a state of steady internal physical and chemical conditions maintained by living systems. System condition of optimal functioning for the organism and includes many variables. It's been thrown out a lot and used a lot. And kind of basing it down is like if you go on a bike and start to pedal fast, your body's going to react to that and increase your heart rate. Homeostasis working to always balance you out to make sure that your organism is alive and surviving. The ultimate goal of the organism is to make sure all our systems, we have a lot of systems going on, are in balance and control. That's what the brain is there for, and that's what homeostasis is there for.
And the way that it's super beneficial is you do some extreme exercise or add a load of stress onto the system, and homeostasis will bring you back down to your optimal operating speed. You can think of the example of someone who's never worked out a day in their life. they go work out one time and they stop working out for a week because they feel this is sore and that sore and their body wants to just rest. So they just give it rest for a week straight before they work out again. And they just keep doing that over and over again, working out one day a week. And they've never built up this compounding effect to get over that homeostatic point to get to the results.
Homeostasis drives a change. We're going to break it down. Homeostatic drives a change from the workout, and they don't work out again for another week because of that learned behavior.
More of they didn't work out because they didn't feel ready to go again. And homeostasis had enough time to bring them back all the way to their previous comfort zone, and they never saw true growth.
And then it's complex because the brain gets thrown in there. And I think this is the great thing about the body is like, yeah, if that system works, if that homeostatic works, it goes up and down and shuts off. But then we have a brain that sits on top. And then we have emotion and previous memory. And that plays a role into it. Like homeostatically, they're ready to go. Well,
totally.
What's stopping 100%. Them?
It's themselves.
Do they want to go back to that state?
Yeah. And that's what I just wanted to highlight. Homeostasis, but this is how we can look at it in a kind of a negative light. This is how it could be detrimental to your results, so to speak, and it can lead you to fall into the comfort zone and stay in the comfort zone. And you're right. A huge piece of that is emotional drivers. Emotional drivers, back to that amygdala processing of, I don't feel 100%, so I don't feel like I should work out. Rather than having that prefrontal cortex knowledge and connecting it back to knowing, I knew what the first 2 weeks were going to be like. I knew that my goal was to get into shape so that I can feel confident and feel good about myself and live my best life. So then now I'll go into the second day's workout sore and tired and hungry and know that it's part of the process and it's not going to be like that forever. So I think that that's a really good point that we're going to kind of blend into here in a second. Let's first define allostasis, which you sent me.
This is
4 in the morning.
Yeah. This is where homeostasis kind of gets thrown out the door. So allostasis is automatically predicting and preparing the body to meet the needs before they arise. So homeostatic, as I kind of say, is more almost as you're getting feedback. All right, okay, I did something and someone's going to tell me what I do. Allostasis is your body predicting what it's going to try to do before you do it, and that's going to go off of previous knowledge. All right, so allostasis gives a better, almost overall view of how the system functions and will react than homeostasis.
You could think of it as allostasis creating our new homeostasis.
Right. I mean, overall, allostasis is driving the system.
Right.
That's the big takeaway. And like homeostasis is just a time frame. It could be 60 seconds out of the day. Boom.
And it's like if you have homeostasis A and homeostasis B, homeostasis prevents allostasis from making homeostasis B, but if allostasis is strong enough, it will make homeostasis B. And that's your new comfort zone, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And it could go both ways. It can be good and bad. There's
the stresses.
And like you said earlier, there's this back and forth, right? There's fear and then there's good. Like you can't be on one spectrum the whole time. And that's a big thing when you start throwing comfort zone and allostasis in, because once you start putting too much allostatic load on the body, it will start to change, and it can change for a bad way, depending. Like if you're always eating a lot of carbohydrates, high glucose, high cortisol levels, that allostatic response is going to be like, okay, well, it's going to increase blood pressure. You're going to have now increased hypertension. That's not good for the system. But the system knows it has to do that because it's predicting what you're going to do in the future so it can survive. And it can do its best job at sustaining some sort of balance level in the system. Because if there's no balance, you go and eat those carbohydrates, it's not ready to have insulin, all this stuff. Your system's going to start to be in dysfunction.
And I think another key area to highlight is the idea of growth. With everyone's life, whether it's how they exercise or how they read or how they focus on their career or their relationships with their loved ones, there's a level to which everyone's system is looking for growth. And we can define growth as simply a stage or condition in increasing, developing, or maturing. So back to our comfort zone and homeostasis holding us in that comfort zone, if we let the thoughts of our fear or our lack of self-confidence or our stress, if we let all that overcome our ability to perform, then we're stuck.
Mhm.
And now we are no longer going to see growth and maturation in the individual and in that system. So a lot of times it comes down to little tricks or little ways to break out of those habits. For example, I remember even at a young age, it being hard for me to get out of bed for the first alarm. And it wasn't until I was probably 14 or 15 that I was like, "What? I'm gonna just set my alarm clock away from my next to my bed," so that it forced me to stand up out of bed and turn my alarm clock off and gave me that extra second to think and override that amygdala processing of laziness, of tired, of succumbing to just stagnancy, and again gave me that space to make that option and redirect that pathway to make action, to stand up, to make my bed, to get out, to go start my day, to go for a walk, whatever it may be. But sometimes it does take time to figure out where in your life and where your brain is actually stuck in its ways and not allowing you to see the growth and experience those fearful things that create learning in the individual.
And it's always an interesting thing. Like you say, you're getting out of bed. That is your bodies are built for survival and a certain need for food. We'll call it like reproducing. So genetic beings or recreation and kind of living. So you being comfortable in your bed, that's great. It's warm. You got the covers on, whatever. I hear this from a lot of clients like, oh, it's hard to get up. And okay, it can be because the body's good there. Its energy balance is equal. It's not overexerting itself. It's not unexerting itself. So I can see where people get this comfort. But as you sent me this graph, and the next circle, so there's one circle is the comfort zone. The next circle is that unknown, that fear, this disruption of comfort. And I think that is what stops a lot of people. And what I did like, the lack of self-confidence.
It's a big one.
I think that's huge because now people have their own perception of their self-worth, right? They're internally thinking about how they are in society, how they are in current life, where they are, maybe where they're not. And that fear of pushing to get in that's a hard thing for the brain to realize. We don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't like to be in awkward situations. That's the next step out of the comfort zone. You have to kind of realize and recognize this, that it's going to be there. Your brain's going to have to learn to be uncomfortable. It's going to have to be put in that situation where you don't feel competent. But once you get there, you've got to put you there. You get past that, you learn. Then you start becoming competent. And once you get there, now you're talking growth. That is the hardest part, is that fear of the unknown for the brain. The fear of the unknown. If I get out of bed, it's going to be cold in the morning. Great. I mean, those are minor comforts, right? Those are like discomforts, like, oh, it's cold out, it's 30 degrees, I got to get up, or whatever. But you're right, your tactics work. Small tactics like that will work. And at the end of the day, it's literally shifting your thinking, your system, to be like, okay, this is the comfort zone. I recognize it. We all have them. They're okay to have. I need to step into the unknown a little bit and get out of it. So I learn.
I think that's why you and I love Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning so much, because of the way it repositions the word suffering, where it the idea is that they look for suffering. There's a German phrase like, "Oh, what suffering there is to get to today," and I think the habits that you're talking about that you can fall into, of if you constantly just search for comfort your whole life, you'll miss out on the value behind pushing yourself through things that otherwise may seem hard, which then builds that confidence piece, and it starts to compound on itself over time. The more you do it, the more you just have this exuberating self-confidence that you just feel like you can tackle the world with. And it just, I think some people either want the instant gratification, or they don't think it's feasible or doable, and they lack the ability to even have that insight and say, no, this is just I'm just playing tricks on myself, and I can't believe everything I think. And what if I fail? I'm not going to die. I might scrape my knee, or I might fall. I might, whatever, break my nose, or have to put the weight down early, or might have to leave the gym early because I won't be able to finish the workout, but I'm going to try. I'm going to, for damn sure, give it my all. And there's something to, once you start to break down that wall of fear, lack of self-worth, of lack of self-confidence, you start to unfold some of the negative thoughts from your past experiences that are holding you back. And a lot of times what it comes down to is people lacking a self-love, lacking a feeling that they are deserving of greatness in this world. They just feel like life's beating them down, or they've received bad letter grades in school, or they've received bad reviews, and they feel like that's who they are. Well, I'm this D in math. Like I'm just a bad person at math. Or I'm just a bad person. I'm just this, that, and the other thing. And there's no real reason to hold on to these labels. They're experiences that dictate our beliefs, which then dictate our behaviors. And sometimes you can reverse engineer it, and you can see your behaviors, and you can see your words. And there's a great quote that goes, actions prove who someone is, and words just prove who they want to be. So you can even catch yourself in your own lectures, your own thoughts, and just say, wow, like I see where I want to be, and I see what's holding me back. And ultimately it is always comes down to ourselves. And the more that we can take internal responsibility, and we can overcome some of these negative feedback loops, or these comfort feedback loops that prevent us from seeing growth in whatever area that we want to see growth in, whether it's our personal relationships, whether it's our self-confidence, whether it's our strength, whether it's our endurance.
Mm-hmm. They pop up everywhere. That's just how our brain works. And you keep mentioning loops. That's kind of the system, what it is. If it's simple and easy, I just think of it's like a NASCAR track, right? It's just going to file in that loop, and it's going to go for 500 miles. And essentially, that's what happens. You break that loop and you make a turn different way. Okay, it's different. I got to relearn. That's where most people kind of really have to understand that the brain is such a powerful organ, but once it has that loop going, it doesn't want to stop that loop. That is simplicity.
Yeah.
That is not a complex thing that it has to think about. And obviously thinking or developing over time is growth, right? We had to, as human beings, try to figure out many things. Obviously there's thinking and emotions to it, but our brains didn't grow because of comfort zones. Our brains grew because things came up in our environment that threatened our comfort zones. So it's a simple thing as if you need growth, our brains need to be challenged for neuroplasticity. If you want to be better, we have to be challenged. And that's a big thing nowadays, even for as we're starting to live longer, mental health as we get older. Mind games, these puzzles, Sudokus, crosswords, challenging the brain to fail. It's okay to fail. And I think people need to fail daily. And maybe fail is a harsh word. Maybe I could say people need to misunderstand daily. If you're reading something and you don't understand it, you have to go read it 3 or 4 times. And then it's kind of bothering you because you don't understand it yet. That's failure, right? I think it's great. I've read books in courses where I don't understand, and then I reread. It takes me about 2 to 3 times rereading a manual to really be like, oh, okay, I get that concept right where that is. That's okay, because if I got it the first time, everything would be easy and there's no growth. But we have these challenging concepts in our lives for this growth. And I think that's where people need to recognize where their comfort zones are. And there's things in this life that love comfort. We have people that make Netflix and these streaming things that will keep us comfortable, right? We want to be pulled in and kind of stepped away. I'm not saying I've never done it, but you have to recognize where these are and stop it.
But I would even go a step further. There's 2 things I want to say there, but I would even go a step further and extrapolate on that and say, yeah, like do something foolish every day. And don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to be bad at something. There's so many young people who aren't even trying because they compare themselves to social media accounts or TikTok videos or Snapchat videos, and they're like, well, I'm not as good as that person. I'll never be as good as that person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure you won't if you never apply, if you never try, if you never try to develop these skills, if you never even see if it's something you're truly interested in, you'll never gravitate towards the things that you are interested in. And
Right.
The other piece too I want to say is, are we really truly that comfortable? COVID hits and it prevents people from having to leave their house, and they get to stay in the comfort of their own home. And what happens? Suicide rates go up.
Comfort.
Anxiety goes up. Domestic abuse goes up. Are people really truly comfortable when they just hold themselves in a bubble box the whole time? Or are they diluted by their biology to promote the fear response and survival and end up in this loop that's created off of habits that they think they need to survive, that's leading them nowhere? And that's kind of the premise behind how comfort can kill. And this is how comfort will kill you, is if you let it lead you constantly, and you always think that when you have an emotion, it's who you are rather than just something you're experiencing.
And you're 100% right. Like, the comfort's a dichotomy, right? It's good and bad. People look at comfort food. Okay, ooh, that's good, but too much of it is bad. And your point exactly, you brought up, too much comfort creates, like you said, this negative self-image that we have, because we start comparing ourselves to others. Well, that person's successful. He's doing this. I go on social media, look at that. And people start aiming high. They're aiming at goals that they're not going to achieve in the next year or 2. And now they're losing that drive. That self-worth goes low. So now they become depressed. They say, well, I'm not worth anything. I'm kind of worthless in this society. And that just leads to compiling comfort zones, right? If I'm worthless, I'm not going to take care of myself. I don't really care about my family around me, my friends around me. And what do? They'll find people like them, like-minded people. Oh, you're worthless too? Perfect. Pull into my society. Let's kind of dwell in our worthlessness together. And this is a problem. This is the comfort zone. That's the killing part of it. So you start having communities that are looking lower self-worth, and then they lead to early death, suicides, these major problems that are not good.
It leads to stagnancy.
Exactly. And it's like, as long as comfort zone kills, like, same thing, complacency kills. You get too complacent, your nervous system, your brain just kind of does not dwell there. It doesn't like that, because our human brain is built for success and drive. I don't want to say power, but this innate thought of like, okay, hey, we want to be on top. We want to be successful. And we see people every day that there are. And it's a big driving force of why people get stuck in this comfort zone. And it's so detrimental.
I wanted you to explain that graphic to people that you sent me this morning. I think that's another piece that will help make it more digestible for change. Menti sent me this graphic this morning from a book that he's reading, and it just talks about the brain's budget. And we've had a podcast about this a while ago called about a mental bandwidth. I think it's super important because say that you're trying to work on self-confidence, but you're basically at adrenal fatigue and mental fatigue because you're already doing so much. It's going to be hard for your body to have the energy, have the mindfulness, and have the discipline to push yourself out of your own comfort zones. So sometimes just taking a step back and getting that bird's eye perspective can really help. And sometimes that takes talking to somebody else. I've definitely been there where I've been in a paralysis by analysis, where you think so much, you just freeze, you don't take any action, and you literally feel like you're trapped. And then it took like a friend or a relationship or a counselor to talk this stuff out with, and it immediately takes the weight off your chest, and it like pulls the thoughts out of your brain, and they're much more of this like tangible piece that you can play around with, and it takes away the power and hold over your system. So don't be afraid to use a journal to write this stuff down and get it out of your brain, get it out of your psyche, get it out of controlling you, or talk to a counselor, a therapist, or a sports psychologist, whatever it may be. But we're social creatures, and we're meant to lean on other people. And odds are the hell you're going through is something that someone else has been through, or someone who could at least point you in the right direction to help overcome it.
Yeah, so this diagram, it's actually from the book 7.5 Lessons About the Brain. So the diagram, that's your basic. There's some drawings of a human on it, but underneath it says your brain runs a budget for your body that regulates water, salt, glucose, and many other biological resources inside you. And we're thinking hormones, cortisol, opioids, dopamine, serotonin, inflammatory agents, oxygen, insulin, kind of you name it, the body's going to run it. And it says, every action you take or don't take is an economic choice. Your brain is guessing when to spend resources and when to save them. So this is the cost. This is the budget. So, okay, am I going to take this action? What's it going to cost for my body? Going on, and it says, the best source of information comes from their past, the actions they've taken at other times in similar circumstances. If a past action brought benefits, such as a successful escape or a tasty meal, they're likely to repeat this action. Prediction is such a powerful capability that even single-celled creatures plan their actions predictably. So this is where our kind of innate biology as creatures stems this loop. And now that we have this world that we developed with, we overget dopamine, we overget this joy of food, we overget this taste. This past experience is driving the brain to be like, I don't care if it's healthy, I don't care what it costs, I want to do it because it feels good. And I think that's where we're getting this comfort zone takeover, is because the brain is kind of, we have too many options, and we're losing this because it's going based on what the past is. Now, let's talk about this as we live in a first world country. We have access to all this stuff. You take someone who doesn't, and all they've known is eating meat and rice and potatoes all their life, their brain's going to be a little bit more adapted, right? They don't understand what junk food is, what sugar is. It's going to be foreign to them. So it is very important to people understand that the way kind of life is developed and technology comes, which there's good things that come from it, but we have to understand what it's doing to the insides of our brains, and it's changing us, maybe not for the better. And we have to recognize those things that are changing us and build past experiences, right? You can moderate past experiences of things, as you said, like the skydiving, or if you have a fear of the dark, and each night you start going into the dark a little bit more, and you start being less uncomfortable in the dark. You start creating new past experiences, and that's a big way, as you said with your bed example, to change your comfort zone. You need to start creating past experiences that are going to push you through the fear zone into the learning zone. And I think that is a huge step for people. So past experiences could be something I did this morning. It does not need to be something I did 10 years ago, because the best part about the human body is we can always start. There's never a bad time to start fitness, because once you start, there's a past experience you've done.
And I just want to also go back to the budget piece too. What if you are experiencing that, if you're feeling like you're lacking sort of the mental bandwidth or the budget to harness change or to overcome things or to work on a practice to help build self-confidence, well, then maybe you need more sleep, or maybe you need some stress management, or maybe you need a more well-rounded diet. There might be something going on in your ecosystem that's also preventing you from the energy allotted to managing all these processes in the body and managing allocation of resources.
Not just one thing. There's multiple things. We are a complex being. There's multiple things that play a role into this. So it's important to look at all aspects of lifestyle.
Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardships. Denzel Washington.
Legendary.
Mic drop.
Man, I remember you telling me that quote years ago, and you've still stood by that quote. And that quote is, I think,
it's
honestly,
so true.
Every weight room, every gym should have that quote before you go in for you, or even every business, because it makes you think. Ease will stop you 100%
The
of the
hardships
time.
that you will face in life are less of a threat to you seeing success than ease is. And
that's the big word.
So
Success is the word. So, badass quote.
We'll see you guys. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Follow our email chain at thinkfitnesslife.com for more updates. See you guys.
If you're ready to make steps towards improving your health or increasing your performance, book a free 30-minute call today by visiting thinkfitnesslife.com.